first speaker of the evening was the catcher on the 1969 and 70 state championship baseball teams. He was the captain of the 1970 team. He's a North Reading High School Hall of Famer and the best middle school PE teacher I ever had, although he's only the second best PE teacher in his own house, Mr. Peter Hill.
I gave specific instructions to Biz. They didn't follow any of them. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight. This is a great tribute, and I'm very hopeful. I'm hoping that this tremendous celebration tonight can provide a big boost for Frank and for his fragile ego and poor self-image. I'm hoping that can be boosted tonight, somewhere along the way. As was mentioned earlier, in September of 1965, Frank Carey was hired by North Reading High School to teach science. After a stellar career as a student athlete at the University of Rhode Island. Yeah, the only thing lower than his grade point average was his batting average. I feel as though I'm qualified for this job tonight since I've been exposed to Frank and subjected to him for 48 years, starting as a freshman, ninth grader in his PE class. And I'm here tonight as a survivor, and I know there are other survivors out here. Wait a minute. Other survivors of one of Frank's earlier inventions. It was called boxing basketball. If you're using imagination out there, it was worse. I was fortunate enough to play for Frank, fortunate enough to coach with him. I've worked his baseball camp for over 30 years. My wife Vicki and I vacationed with him many times in the Dominican Republic. I've always said Frank knows enough Spanish to be dangerous. And allegedly, he was my physical education director for many years. Frank, you should have put a mask on for that robbery. All right, enough of me. Before our next contestant, I'd just like to say something about a former player of Frank's, 1983 graduate, heck of a catcher, and to this day, he's been helping Frank in the baseball program as Mr. Fix-It, doing anything for Frank, mainly using his skills as an electrician. And I can say this because I've been on the committee for this travesty. We would not be here tonight if it weren't for Scott Ellis. Our next speaker has seen it all, done it all, taught PE with Frank for 35 years, a successful coach, longtime athletic director. It was my pleasure to teach with him for many years, and I can sum him up with one word: he is a pro. Roy Condon.
Thank you, Peter. I was asked to speak at Frank's retirement party 2 years ago. You do know that we've done this before. It's a little Yogi Berra deja vu. Speaking of deja vu, I heard Frank was a little emotional when he saw the North Reading Police Department coming for. Little do we know that some of us in the 70s know that he had a few escorts before, and they weren't on the Saturday afternoons after the championships. I was first introduced to Frank in 1971. It was opening day of the new teachers coming in, and I got introduced to Frank, and I was from UMass. He was from URI. I thought Yankee Conference, we had something in common. I graduated in 4 years. How many? All right, so then, okay, what did you play? I said I played lacrosse. All of a sudden, there was silence. He said, I'm the baseball coach. We don't have lacrosse at North Reading. He then introduced me to Nancy McLaughlin. He walked over the other side of the room with his Lynn buddies and just stood there and laughed. I had the privilege to work along Frank again for 35 years. In the gym, it was more like playing. We actually complemented each other very well. I was young and energetic. He was, well, established. Being the rookie, I had first period and last period. He had the cushy middle periods around lunchtime, because after lunchtime, baseball started. Even in the fall, he'd be out edging and doing weeds. As most of you, from alumni know that Frank could talk the talk in the gym. All right, so that he would challenge all the players, and we would play volleyball, usually 6-on-2. And then he bragged about how we were undefeated. We who couldn't touch the top of the net. But he was my mentor. He was the originator of the buy high, sell low theory. All right, that probably says enough. He helped me with my parenting skills. All right, like convincing me that the 12 o'clock curfew for my daughter at her senior prom would pay dividends in the future. In the 70s, he became, Mr. Sensitivity over here, was the AD, and he heard about this thing, Title IX, coming in, so he started the Diamond Girls. He continued his crusade with equal rights, and I say that with a straight face, so I practiced it, by allowing the formation of the soccer cheerleaders. In 1976, the soccer team won the Cape Ann League, and Mr. A.D. Frank chaperoned his one and only spectator bus to Brockton, where he left the sister of the captain of the soccer team at McDonald's in Brockton. This was pre-cell phone days and election day, the first Tuesday in November, so as the bus rolled back into the gym, we were met by throngs, hoping that they realized that he was smart enough to go back. So the parents, the meanies, had to go all the way to Brockton to pick up their daughter. I became AD in 1982. As we know, Frank is a smooth talker. He handled his own parent issues. What issues? You want to play baseball? There are no issues. You get a haircut, you shave. I only had to intervene or get involved one time, and that's when a new tryout or a new transfer came in, and Frank actually gave the kid a tryout with an imaginary baseball. The kid then came to me and complained that he got cut. So I had to go and tell Frank that it was an MIAA violation. He was coaching out of season, and that the kid would have another chance in the spring. We'll see a tape later on so we know all the innovations that Frank has gone through, but as an AD, I had to justify the budget, a sheet of 3/4-inch plywood to make wooden gloves, a 10-pound bag of talcum powder to spread on the gym floor and convince the custodians that, it would be okay, that they'll clean up, dozens of wiffle golf balls, but no golf clubs in the budget, pirate costume eye patches, rolls of black electrical tape, DPW cones that were then actually recycled. So when you go down the street and you see the ones with the tops all broken, you know that they came from the batting cage and went back to the DPW. But on a serious note, each senior, and again, I'll wrap it up in a minute, each senior awards banquet, if people remembered, if they did get those 7-letter awards, I used to list an approximate number of hours that kids spent. That the 3 to 3.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, and we know the Saturday practices in baseball lasted a little bit longer. 11 to 12 weeks in a season, and again, for those letter award winners, we went on the number of seasons and everything else. But in baseball, the old phrase, it gets hotter in June, so that they always played there. But I figured out the numbers, and it came to well over 10,000 hours of on-field contact. That's in addition to all of the clinics and everything else that he had done. Figures have been published many times about the pyramid of the number of people that play youth sports. Then they go into high school, then they go to college, and then the pros and the Hall of Fames. But stop and think about, at each level, the one coach is a 15 or 20 to 1 ratio. And it's mind-boggling to know the decimal points, and then add 45 years in one location. So again, I think surely it does add up to Frank, you being 1 in a million. I'm honored proud to have known you, worked for you, with you, traveled with you, partied with you a few times, but most of all, celebrated with you. Congratulations. And now, John O'Brien, Linfield High School.
Great job. Good evening to all. I'd like to start by saying it's an honor to be asked to speak here tonight, especially being the only one from the enemy camp. Linfield versus Reading, let's just say it's still a healthy rivalry. North Reading. Oh. I first met Frank in 1990, was an assistant coach at Winchester High School. Brought my players down to train at the finest indoor hitting facility on the East Coast. As it was known, a lot of the kids were wearing green and yellow at the particular time, but that's a story for another time. As an assistant at Linfield, under the legendary coach Steve McBride, we matched wits with Frank on many occasions. On one particular occasion, we were down 1 run in the 7th inning. We called for a squeeze. Frank sniffed it out. After the game, he was very proud of that. Pulled out a index card which said, McBride likes to squeeze on the first pitch. Unfortunately, it was the second pitch because our guy fouled one off. But that's Frank, a true genius in every sense of the game. I later became in possession of one of Frank's business cards that pretty much sums it up. Frank Carey, no Jim Lefevre, am world-renowned, invented every innovating coaching technique. Then it says turn over. He knows Connie Mack, gave Babe his nickname, wrote Take Me Out to the Ball Game, suggested baseball at night, was at least the 3rd best player from Lynn, Massachusetts, under 5'6". Told John McNamara to leave Buckner in the game. And it basically says, I invented baseball. I said to myself, this guy's the balls. Huh? Oh, Jesus. Another time, I called Frank during the day, as I sometimes did, seeking coaching advice. He ran in out of breath, came in from the outside where they're remodeling Carey Park. Unfortunately, the guys were putting down the sod, put the 1st and the 3rd base coaching boxes at 10 feet, which is regulation under MIAA and Major League Baseball rules. Frank was having none of that, moved it back to 2 feet so his guys would be able to stay in the sun instead of being in the cold and the shade for the entire game. Let's not mention Mount Kilimanjaro, which happens to be the nickname for the mound at North Reading High. Some of my men had to be resuscitated as well as had nosebleeds. Jesus. Oh, my God. Over the last 10 years versus Linfield, North Reading, we've had some great battles. Frank and I are great friends, and we respect each other's programs and the great kids that we've had play for us. We talk all the time, shake hands before the game, and then spend the next 3 hours trying to kick the absolute hell out of one another. At the end, we shake hands, talk again, and wish each other well. Having a friendly bet on the games, with the winner actually buying dinner and a few adult beverages for the loser. Let's just say that Frank bought more times than I did. Terrific coach and a great friend. I have many memories of these games, but two stand out. My first season at Linfield, 2005, both teams ranked 4-0 on a rainy, snowy day at North Reading. North Reading jumped out to a 6-0 lead after 2 innings. We got the kids together and told them, if you wanted to compete in this league and you wanted to be the best, you have to beat the best. Fortunately for us, as the next 5 innings unfolded, we ended up beating them in an incredible ball game. Dad told me that my kids could compete, but number 2, that you still have to go through the best program in the Cape Ann League and one of the best in the state. Fast forward to 2014 at Carey Park. And by the way, I thought you had to die to get something named after you. But that's what happens when you shoot a big envelope to those involved. Okay? Big crowd on hand. Both sides ready to play. Okay, we jumped out to a 3-0 lead, only to have North Reading come back, tie the game 3-3, just like they always do, just like we do. Battle to the end. Okay? At that point, we ended off with a triple in the 8th inning. And I remembered something that Frank always said to me. I never squeeze. And I don't know why he ever said it to me. Maybe it was a moment of weakness. So we got a 1-0 count, and I thought back to the time, geez, I wonder if this guy's looking at his cards again, where he got us on 2-0 when he really thought it was 1-0. So we waited, and we squeezed. We ended up squeezing in the winning run, but not after his kids hit the ball in the last of the 9th, and my center field made 2 incredible catches. It was a great game. And to this point, that's one of the best games I've ever been in, but I had no idea at the ramifications that game held. At game's end, we all shook hands. I met with Frank at home plate, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries, and at that point, Frank told me that he was going to retire. He told me that he had not told anyone and to please keep it between us. I felt honored, number 1, that we were good enough friends that he said that to me, and number 2, that I had lost a great coaching friend and a great competitor and a true class guy in the world of high school baseball. And it was a tough moment for Frank. It was a tough moment for me. I mean, you don't run into guys like this all the time, you know? And for him to sit there and say that to me was a special moment. We also had a couple other things to say, but I'll keep that between ourselves. As far as North Reading, the legacy that he has left here will be hard to match. Very hard to match. A true sportsman who loves the game of baseball. Not, this is in season, that's not the case. It's 360 days a year at North Reading. We know that. I mean, you have the finest hitting facility in the entire Western Hemisphere this time. But I'll tell you, his kids play for him. They play together. They play as a team. Okay? And you don't find that. You don't find that. And for us to be able to be a successful program, we have to match that. And it's brought my kids up to the level where they're looking to compete against great teams like that and great programs like that. It wasn't all hate, 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 which is the big thing between North Reading and Linfield. My captain from this year and Frank's captain from this year are actually roommates at Assumption, playing down there, which is a great thing. Great kids. I mean, baseball is the dominant factor here, not us versus you. Okay? Frank considers himself an innovator, always trying to invent new training methods and techniques. I think one time Frank actually talked me into, and I may be wrong on the exact figures, but Frank says to me, I have a big invention. It's called a click-it bat. So I says, oh yeah, what's going on there? So he brings it out. It's going to be marketed by Dick's Sporting Goods. Now, how dumb are they, number one? Okay, anybody that's ever gone to a clinic at Frank's place or coached there knows the Whammo bat. But this guy takes the rubber off it and reinvents it, and he's going to market it on the internet at Dick's. Like a dummy, I invest $1,000. This is a no, I'm golden here, right? So, at some point, I say to myself, Jesus, it's been like almost 5 years. I wonder how that's doing. You know, Frank just come back from Greece. The guy was in California, New Mexico, New Brunswick, New Jersey, Arizona. I mean, I'm saying, geez, something's wrong here. So, at this point, I'd like to know who is handling the money here tonight. Because I'd like to get my G-note back because I can't put a lien against his check because the guy's retired. Two more quick things. I went to Frank's golf tournament this year after many years of coaxing me to go, and I went there, and all the guys treated me terrific. I know a lot of them personally, having coached their kids at his camps and everything else. But I ended up winning one of the first prizes. And one of the guys, I don't know who it was, but he said, look at this, we invite the enemy, and now he wins a prize. That brought a tear to my eye. I loved it. Frank, you're the man. I enjoyed competing against you, hanging out with you, the whole bit. Your summer camps were a laugh a minute. Coach Mag, Coach Kelleher, Coach Hill, Coach DeJettis, Hall of Famers, all. You'll be sorely missed in the Cape Ann and in the baseball community in the state of Massachusetts, and I'd say state, throughout the country. You go to all those clinics, you represent us very well. That leads me to the last thing in the evening here. Coach Carey is very active in the Mass Baseball Coaches Association. He was actually one of the founding members. To my knowledge, there are only 3 guys left from 1968. His efforts are tireless. Fantastic job he does. Goes to all the conventions. I don't know if we're paying for that. Are we, Frank? Or you're going on your own? I'm not sure on that. But we'll leave that. We have a little plaque here on behalf of all the guys over there that are in the association who came here tonight to represent them. It says, Frank Carey, number 13, 736 wins. With gratitude for your service and tireless efforts to the Massachusetts Baseball Coaches Association and high school baseball, North Reading High School, 1966 through 2014, MBCA Charter member, 1968 to present. And with that, I'd like to thank you all tonight for inviting me here and for Coach Carey being such a great friend and a terrific man. Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Frank's son-in-law, Mark Marchenko.
Thank you, everybody. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the North Reading Diamond Club, all the former players, friends, colleagues, especially you, Frank, for allowing us as a family to be part of such a special event. It's truly an honor to be part of something as noteworthy as this. Frank, I've known you for the better part and been part of your family for the better part of 20 years now. And I think I can speak for David as well when I say there isn't a day that goes by you haven't made us feel welcome. People know about your unparalleled coaching stats, so I won't go into that. But what I'm here to tell you is that we as a family appreciate all, all that you've done and still continue to do for each and every one of us, whether it be a piece of advice, a well-placed phone call to one of your many connections, or just to be there to pick up and babysit a grandchild or two or even three. It's not easy, but you seem to do it all. And any given day, you can go from a basketball game to a soccer game to a softball game or a baseball game with an equestrian event or an art show thrown in. It is truly a special thing to see the look on the face of your grandchildren when they know that you're there to see them play and a desire to show you that all the Sunday mornings of coaching in the cage has paid off. I never played for Frank. I never had the pleasure, but I was somewhat coached by him at one time. We were on a trip to Miami this past September, and we were standing in the water, chest-deep water, about 200 yards off of shore. I'm looking at Frank. He's, of course, in his underwear because he forgot to bring his shorts. And I noticed a large shark fin swimming behind him. So I yell, "Shark, shark!" I start running out of water. I hear him in the background saying, "Don't splash so much. Bend your knees and keep your back straight." I'm not sure, but I even swear I heard him say, "Come on, babe. Come on, babe." I think some of you guys know what that means. I wasn't really sure because I was so far ahead of him. Not because I'm fast or anything. It's just when I look back, he was going through a full set of signs. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he was probably even telling the shark that he could get a quicker lunge at the swimmer if he started his attack going parallel with the beach. There are a lot of other speakers here, so I'm gonna close. But for those of us that call you dad, papa, brother, uncle, cousin, friend, or coach, we just want to congratulate you on a great and prestigious career and tell you how proud we are, and we all love you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Frank, should we tell Coach O'Brien why the coaches' boxes are where they are and has nothing to do with shade? Yeah, he still doesn't get it, does he? No. It's all right. We'll inform him later. All the alumni in the room know, though. Our next thing that we have up is a musical tribute to a place that Coach O'Brien did mention as the finest hitting facility on the East Coast, or the Western Hemisphere.
In the batting cages, in the batting cages. This is the solo hitter. This is where you can take some swings by yourself until the rope breaks. And when the rope breaks, we ask the Diamond Club for it to be replaced. Bat the mat with a baseball bat. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. In a live cage we were told to swing at strikes. It's kinda strange how every batter looked alike. On video, perfect back, no stride, stance wide, compact swing. and you better not have a chicken wing. How many tires has Scott Ellis replaced? How many tires has Scott Ellis replaced? Enough time where he's glad they're destroying this place. Everyone now! How many tires has Scott Ellis replaced? How many tires has Scott Ellis replaced? Enough time where he's glad they're destroying this place. And I'm just joking. Scott doesn't really want this place destroyed, I don't think. Well, I'm sorry, coach, but I never really liked this one. Pretending he balls on the wall really was never fun. This one fits me to a T.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. It's like a play on words, like a pun. Like the expression fits me to a T, and then it's a T station. Jeez, it's gold. It's gold. Come on. This is the station called Kamikaze. On the wall it says Carey is gone, but maybe God disagrees after he speaks to the nuns at St. Mary's. You guys came pretty close a couple times. I thought that was good. I don't even know if we need to do another one. Good times with the good old halfbacks, but I had trouble with a fullback. Coach, did you use a half beat when you were the coach of the gymnastics team? Yeah, he used to coach gymnastics too. I don't know how many gymnastics championships they won though. I don't think any. This is the mirror that his grandson broke. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is not a joke. I end with a question for all ages. Oh, how many have taken a piss in the batting cages? Oh yeah. Oh, we're in the batting cages. Oh, how many out there need a piss in the batting cages? Oh, you don't have to be ashamed, 'cause I took a piss in the batting cages. I think we're back in 1987. Oh, we're in the batting cages. Oh yeah, yeah, we're in the batting cages. Oh, we're hitting twin shots. Oh yeah, in the batting cages. We're getting fingers, line drives in the batting cages. Oh, we're getting back to pivot. Oh yeah, in the batting cages. Oh, we got that short stride in the batting cages. Yeah, yeah, in the batting cages. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Frank. Congratulations. In the batting cages.
The batting cages. Oh, in the batting cages, yeah. Batting cages. We're in the batting cages, yeah. We're in the batting cages. Woo! Yeah!
I don't know what the ending.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Half Shirt Harry, otherwise known as Mike Lydon. Way to go, Mike. Okay, so I'm going to ask Superintendent Bernard and the principal, Mr. LaPrette, to cover their eyes for a second. I'm going to ask the alumni, how many of you have taken a piss in the batting cages? Come on, show of hands. Speaking of the alumni, there are over 100 alumni here tonight of the little over 300 student athletes that Frank has coached over 45 years of coaching. It's a tremendous, tremendous turnout. You guys all deserve a round of applause just for coming out tonight. It's an amazing show. A couple alumni I want to point out. Steve Palazzolo's out there somewhere. You probably didn't miss Steve at 6'10". He's over there. Steve and Hector Longo from the Eagle Tribune might remember this. This was mentioned years ago. Frank actually told the paper in a season preview that Steve Palazzolo was a good pitcher because he had 3 speeds and he was able to change between them. Those speeds were slow, slower, and slowest. Is A.J. Richardson here tonight? There's A.J. A.J. pitched 16 innings, 223 pitches, in a 16-inning win over Hamilton Wenham. And I want everybody to notice when he waved, he raised his right arm, so he can still use that arm. I'd like that noted for the record. Our next speaker is also an alum of Frank's. The part of the 1999 North Championship team, the 2000 North finalists, went on to play at Tufts University for 4 years, was a New England College Baseball All-Star Game player at Fenway Park. And, of course, the crowning achievement of his athletic career was the 2003 North Reading Men's Softball Championship that he had playing shortstop for the Horseshoe team sponsored by Mr. Pat Lee. Mr. Adam Kikampers.
Biz, I think you guys gave me a lot of beer to play for you guys on that Horseshoe team. How's everybody doing? Thank you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to make some brief comments tonight. In reality, I'm simply just an ambassador for all the guys that I graduated with and played with, because I know they share many of the sentiments and gratitude that I have towards Coach Carey. Guys like Andy Street, Steve Palazzolo, Craig Hansen, Andy Kieran, Bill Moss, I've seen a bunch of them around. You may hear from some of them coming up as well. Too many others to name. I'm still pretty close with a few of those guys, and leading up to this event, we were brainstorming some stories to share and things to touch upon. And needless to say, we had a lot of entertaining material, but we had to take a step back and remind ourselves that this was supposed to be a tribute and not just a roast. After listening to the first few speakers, I'm not sure that that was taken to heart, but I'm going to do my best and turn it around here. Coach, we were the first team to get you thrown out of a game, so I could start there, but I won't. The truth is, when we reflect on our time with Coach Carey, we do laugh a lot. We remember all the fun times and successes we had, but now that we're older, have the benefit of hindsight, I think we're able to understand that it wasn't just about baseball all those years. Constant teacher, Coach taught us many lessons, mostly on the field, some of them off of it, but all of which translated into real life and that we still carry with us today. Among the many things that we learned from Coach Carey, there are probably 3 main themes that they can all be categorized into. The first one, I would say, is that success and accolades are earned. They're not given. No one owes you anything. You have to go get it, Coach would say. Well, I didn't realize it at the time. Coach actually began teaching me this while I was still in middle school under the tutelage of 2 other great teachers, Kathy Hashin and Peter Hill. One day in gym class, Mr. Hill approached me and told me that there was a contest going on to be bat boy at Fenway Park. All I had to do to compete in it was to write an essay explaining why that would be a dream come true, send it to Miss Hashin, and she would submit it to the committee. Well, turns out I spent hours on that essay, and it was worth it because I won. It also turns out I was the only participant in that contest, and years later I found out there wasn't even a contest. But I think that sums it up. Even as a 12-year-old, Coach wasn't going to let me go along for the ride. He wanted me to earn it. I learned a similar lesson, and it was reinforced, pretty embarrassing way, a few years later. During my freshman year, in '97, I got called up to varsity. I was so psyched, I rolled into the locker room that Saturday morning waiting to get my uniform and prepare for the game. But there was no uniform. Coach informed me that I would continue to wear the uniforms we'd been wearing on freshmen. They were the tight, faded, sleeveless unis from the 1974 team. He told me that I would have an opportunity, if I got in there, to earn a varsity uniform. Well, that Tuesday, we're playing against Newburyport. I get called in relief, and their whole bench starts laughing at me. So that was pretty embarrassing, and I guess I didn't earn the uniform until sophomore year because you let me play out the string that year in my 1974 jersey. But once again, lesson learned. You got to earn it. Another theme is that preparation is tantamount to success. One of Coach's go-to and oft-repeated adages was this: there are two ways to get to the top of an oak tree. One is to sit on an acorn and wait, and the other way is to climb it. We heard that often. No one just arrives at the pinnacle one day. It's always a culmination of much practice, preparation, sweat, and labor. It's a culmination of ground balls in the Concord Street parking lots, roll and runs in the gym while it snows out, dungeon-style batting cages on Christmas break, and of course, 5 o'clock sprints. It's everything that goes on outside the spotlight that enables you to perform when the lights are the brightest. Coach never let us take any shortcuts. Coach always took pride in the fact that he never cut anyone from the team. Although, Mr. Condon, I guess we can talk about that later. They always cut themselves. I knew many good athletes at North Reading High School that weren't cut out to play baseball for Coach Carey. He demanded that commitment, dedication, and preparation, and in turn, he reciprocated. Attention to detail matters. You don't just decide to read a catcher's knees and take a base in a game. You refine that skill every day in practice and during BP so that it's second nature on the off chance that it actually happens in a game. I always thought a microcosm of that was sitting in the locker room with my buddies, shining our cleats right before we went to an away game. No one probably ever noticed, but we knew, and we did it, because attention to detail mattered. The third lasting theme is that it's always about the team first. I like to joke that Coach Carey was Bill Belichick before there was Bill Belichick. And I went through some of our old yearbooks, preparing for tonight, and I pulled out a few quotes, one of which is from me after we won the Cal playoffs, and the quote is, "I just threw strikes, everyone else made the plays." And then Palo, after we blew somebody out, reported, "They're a good team. We were just happy to win today." And perhaps most telling of all is the reaction of the Newburyport coach after we beat them in the North Sectional. He said, "They're a great team. They don't have any superstars, but they play well together." Coach Pettingill said that about a team littered with Cal All-Stars, League MVP, Global Scholastic, lots of accolades. Several of us went on to have productive college careers, and Steve, of course, in Pro Ball. But we were never a 1, 2, or 3-man show. Coach instilled in us that it's always about the team. We went 19-1 that regular season, but Coach is most proud that we won the Sportsmanship Award, which was voted by the other league coaches. Of course, Coach, I think that vote took place before the Eagle Tribune published the article about Chris Venencia stealing everyone's signs from the first base box. But like I said, Belichick before Belichick. I actually think that just goes to prove the point even further, Everyone finds a way to contribute. Doesn't matter whether it's on the mound or as a first base coach. It's not about you, it's about the team. Be humble. Admittedly, that was a skill that took me a while to master. Certainly not in high school, but it's one that resonates ever so loudly today when professionals act anything but humble. Coach's words, actions, and demeanor after he won his 500th game with all of us proved his humble nature on display. He credited Arthur Kenny for hiring him. He credited his players for performing all those years, the high school staff for supporting him. She made a lot of jokes about his longevity. Anything but acknowledging his coaching abilities. Now, those that know me know I don't believe in luck. I believe you make your own luck, and perhaps it was destiny then, and not luck, that brought me and my peers together with Coach Carey. A group of guys that used to rush through our work in second grade to trade baseball cards in the back of the room, matched with a coach that would regale us about stories of legends past and Tony C. A group of guys who started a rotisserie baseball league in 1993 before anyone even knew what fantasy sports was, matched with a coach who had stats and information for every situation. A group of guys who loved baseball so much that the only thing they needed was a coach who loved the game as much as they did.